When a lot of us think about Nissan, the cars we think about are things like the 300ZX, the Silvia, and the Skyline. But let's be real, Nissan today has a mere shadow of the character it had in the 1980s and the 1990s. Despite in 2024, Nissan actually sold over 3.3 million cars. It's not doing well. Again, 3.3 million cars is actually a pretty damn good number. But they also had over $400 billion in loss, and they're slowly losing their China and Japan markets. Nissan has a new CEO that says he's a real car guy and wants to bring back cars like the Silvia, which is great. But also, cars like the Nissan Z has been out since 2022 and it's sold like a little bit over 7,000 cars since then. And there's talks to bring back the Skyline, but as a sedan and electric crossover. I believe Nissan's having an incredible identity crisis, and we're going to go over how it could be fixed. Now, I have talked about the whole idea of the Skyline going EV, but it sounds a bit more official this time, so we're going to touch up on it again. And then we're going to go over a lineup in which I believe could potentially fix Nissan. So, let's get right into it. In North America, the Skyline has always been looked at with kind of this myth and lore of it just being the most incredible performance car ever built. There's always been people who believe that it wasn't imported due to our roads can't handle the power. And back when I was in high school, I actually heard someone say a single chip can make the Skyline go from like 350 horsepower to 1,000 horsepower. There's always insane myth to this car. As in Japan, it is viewed as just an awesome sports car. But there was also like automatic sedans you could go buy. It could have very well been used as a cab. I'm not saying it was just a car, but it was a car. And in Japan, the Skyline went on for a long time. Like, I think most people would actually believe that the Skyline ended in 2002 with the R34 platform, but that's not true. The Skyline name continued on the Infiniti G35 platform, calling it the Skyline 350 GT, for years. It actually ended up turning into SUV long-term, still on the Infiniti platform. Like, the reality is, the Skyline kept going way longer than a lot of the North American audience realize. It just hasn't been a legitimate sports car since 2002. And when it was recently announced that the Skyline would be coming back as a sedan and an electric crossover, there was a lot of people kind of trolling the comments saying, it used to be a four-door anyway. Which, like, one, yeah, you're right. Two, shut up. Nissan's having such a wild identity crisis, so the idea of bringing back one of their most like legendary sports cars they've ever built as a EV SUV or just basic sedan, which is what's going to end up being, means they have no idea what they're doing right now. And with that, I believe Nissan needs a restart. Nissan needs to kill off the bulk of their cars and do a full-blown restart on their brand. So I've made a list of 6 cars in which I believe Nissan could cut it down to, and we're going to go over kind of how they could do that. So of the 6 cars I believe Nissan should kind of reduce their lineup to or bring back, we're going to start off with the Silvia. So the Silvia came out in the mid-1960s as Nissan's entry-level sports car. And it went from the mid-1960s to the early 2000s, ending off with the beautiful S15. Despite I believe the S15 is the most gorgeous Silvia ever made, people do tend to lean on the S13, 14, and 15 as their favorites. The beauty of them was they made decent power, they made incredible drift cars, and they're just awesome entry-level sports cars. They're obtainable, you could actually get into them. And it was always said in 2007, 2008, Nissan was actually debating on bringing back the Silvia as the S16, but instead went with the Juke. So since Nissan is talking about bringing back the Silvia right now, I think it was a great place to start. What I believe the Silvia needs to be is a small sports car, rear-wheel drive, seats 4, has a manual option, and has an internal combustion engine. And the main brands Nissan works with is Mercedes, Renault, and Mitsubishi. And none of them really have the right chassis for this. They're all either too small or too big, so what I believe should be done is Mitsubishi and Nissan should team up to make a brand new chassis. Which, yes, is expensive, but hear me out. If both brands were to team up to make a brand new chassis, Nissan could walk away with the S16 Silvia, and Mitsubishi could actually walk away with a brand new Starion. The Starion might not have the greatest brand recognition, but it could make them have a fun car again, because let's face it, Mitsubishi's lineup is pretty dull right now. So having one interesting car could help that pretty easily. So my thoughts on this, keep the price low, make it so people can actually get into this thing. Share parts and costs with Mitsubishi to keep the cost down on all parties, and go use the Ultimate engines to have the optional 250 horsepower version of these. And if you're whining about 250 horsepower, keep the weight down, somewhere between 29 and 3,100 pounds. So that 250 horsepower will be doing a lot. It'll be a lot of fun. Next one is a new truck. Now, right now, Nissan makes the Titan and the Armada, which are both some of Nissan's worst-selling cars right now, so I do believe they need a update. I'm going to listen to Doug DeMiro on this and say what they need to do is make a truck and SUV that is Mercedes G-Wagon competition. Now, the easiest thing to do here would be use the G-Wagon platform, but the idea of Mercedes actually lending out the G-Wagon platform to a company to make a G-Wagon competition is never going to happen. Which means this one will also be a brand new chassis. With that, I think they need to go by, keep it simple, stupid. Use the F-150 as inspiration. You have gas-powered versions and you have an electric version. Make your EV version, make it efficient, but also get that 5.6 liter engine, stroke it out to 6 liters, beef up the internals, make it a bit more efficient, try get 400 horsepower out of it. No hybrid system, just make an engine that works really well. And give it that boxy, rugged look. Outside of the G-Wagon, there's not that many trucks that offer that boxy, rugged look and a V8 option. Priced right, this thing would be killer. If you could have the truck and SUV share the same platform like the Rivians, that would cut down a lot of cost. And offer a pickup truck, which in the grand scheme of things, currently doesn't really exist. Next up, I'm going to go with a bit of an oddball pick and say, bring back the Figaro. So the Nissan Figaro came out in the late 1980s, early 1990s as this kind of cutesy, old school K-car convertible from Nissan. I think the name recognition was only going to really work with the enthusiasts, but if they have something that, frankly, I would keep EV, but to cut costs on it, I would use the upcoming Suzuki Cappuccino chassis, which that's going to have a 1.3 liter, like 3-cylinder or 4-cylinder in it. So if they have something that's completely electric, it's not really going to be full competition for that. But it's the right size, it's going to be a convertible, and it could work really well. And it being electric, yeah, that is going to up the cost a bit. But if they can keep it small and keep it simple and just make it really stylish, it could work, as long as they make it efficient. But nonetheless, it'd be something that adds a little bit of excitement to the brand. Now I'm going to do 4 and 5 at the same time for a few reasons. That is the Nissan Kicks and the Nissan Sentra. Now both cars are actually fairly new, all things said and done, and they're also both on the same chassis, being the CMF-B chassis, which is fairly new. Since they're fairly new, they've had a fairly recent update, and they're actually some of Nissan's best-selling cars right now. I don't think they really need to change. If it's working, there's no point in dropping it. But the changes I would make is kind of their focuses. Now for the Sentra, I'd say make it legitimate Hyundai Elantra and Honda Civic competition with a fun variant. And for the Kicks, shoot for the Tesla Model Y. The Tesla Model Y still does fairly well, even with Elon being absolutely insane. Although that hasn't hurt sales. But if they can make an electric crossover that's pretty decent, that you can actually obtain and get into, I think it would do really well. It's sort of the same thing with the Sentra. If you're going to make one electric version, you may as well make the electric version of the Sentra, but I do believe it should have a kind of peppy gas engine, or something that's enough to keep up with at least the Civic Si. I don't think those two need a complete overhaul, but I do think they need to be updated a little bit to make sure they're legitimate competition. And the last one I'm going to mention, the one you came here for, the Nissan Skyline. This is one car I do think would need to be done completely from scratch. I don't think the route they're going is the right route for it. I do think this is going to need to be the halo car. Here's what I would do. I would stick to the script. The bulk of people love the R32, R33, R34. I'd make it look like a modernized version of those. Now, I do have one opinion that not everyone's going to like, but just hear me out. Since making an all-new chassis for this would be extremely expensive, for the engine, I'd go with the M256 Mercedes engine. Now, the M256 is a turbocharged straight six, which makes up to 426 horsepower. Now, I know what you're saying. Isn't that exactly what Toyota did with the Supra using BMW parts? Technically, yeah. But I think the Skyline should come out as C8 Corvette competition. So, give the engine to Nismo. Let them tune it. Throw another turbocharger on it, make it a bit more rowdy, have it make about 525 horsepower. 525 with like 8-speed automatic or a 6-speed manual could change the feel of that drivetrain dramatically. And if we get a Skyline that does like 60 in 3 to 3.5 seconds, making 525 horsepower, and if they keep the weight down a little bit, this thing would be a rocket. It'd be so much fun. And now some of you are saying, well, that makes less power in the GTR. Yes, but we're also not shooting for GTR prices. If we're going to shoot for like C8 Corvette competition, which I think is pretty fair competition for this, keep it around that $80,000 to $100,000 marker, and this thing would probably do well. And last thing for the performance version of this, being the Skyline GTR, give it an optional from factory swap RB26. Mod it so it's making similar power to the Mercedes engine, but give it the option. Nissan, you would do so well with that. Now, despite I do believe this would be the Halo car of Halo cars, if Nissan actually pulled it off, it does need to be profitable. So, stick to the script. Along with the GTRs back in the day, Nissan also made sedan versions of all the Skylines. So, make a sedan version. Don't give the sedan version the GTR spec engines, but give it the Mercedes engine. Make it a car, you can make a lot of money on it. And if you dropped the Altima, you could actually use the Skyline in replacement of the Altima. Along with all that, I'm just gonna say this, use that chassis, put a crossover body on that chassis so you have some sort of like all-wheel drive crossover, larger SUV, and then you're gonna make as much money from that chassis as you possibly can. Yes, all of that's expensive. Everything I just said is an expensive option, but I think if Nissan wants to actually survive, they need to drop some money. Beautiful example of this was Audi. 2005, Audi sold about 830,000 cars per year. 2007, 2008, they had one of the best refreshes of any manufacturer you've ever seen, bring out the Q Series Audi, the S5, and the R8. R8 being like the best Halo car ever. Even with a recession, in 2008, they actually increased sales by 200,000 cars per year. And now in 2024, they actually do 1.6 million cars per year. Those may not be the most incredible sales numbers ever, but with a total refresh of the brand, they actually doubled their sales since 2005. Yeah, it took 20 years, but they played the long game and it's worked. But I want to know, what do you think? If you were to make a lineup to rebrand Nissan and make them work, what would you do? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe, enjoyed if you've seen. I tend to post a couple times a week, and I'll see you later.